Welcome into a brand new edition of the Desmond Johnson Show here as we get ready for a wild card weekend in the NFL. We got to chop it up in the ACC, so I had to go grab my guy, Brendan Marks from The Athletic. We're going to talk a little bit about the transfer portal, and we're going to talk and get you ready for ACC Hoops weekend. I know it's a big football weekend, but we've got some hoops we need to discuss as well as the ACC. They look like they might be back, Brendan, compared to last year. It's looking pretty good for the first 15 teams that are in the league. So we're going to talk about the ACC and what they've done to get better. Of course, we'll look at Carolina and Duke. Brendan handles the beat for both teams, and we'll get you caught up with all that stuff there. It's a live Desmond Johnson Show. Let's go.
Live with Desmond Johnson, son, the live is one. Represent NC to the fullest.
Yeah, welcome to the Carolinas. Everywhere you go, the sky is Carolina blue, the finest. Live action, feedback, the city need that. I've been number one, no cap. Here's the recap. Adrenaline is my addiction. I'm about to relapse. Step on the turf if you won't and get your weed whack. I'm going harder than a martyr on the slaughter end. It's the heart of man, that's a rap like a cardigan. I'm breaking records, it's 4th and inches. I count the seconds. The over-under's my roar of thunder, my secret weapon. Yeah, the game is to be told. I don't break, I break modes. Follow me on Tobacco Road.
Live with Desmond Johnson, son, the live is one. Represent NC to the fullest.
And welcome into the Desmond Johnson Show here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, tobaccoroadsportsradio.com. Make sure you rate and subscribe to Tobacco Road Sports Radio's podcast network. It's growing weekly. Just go to any of your favorite podcast platforms. Spotify, I believe, is the preference. Go over there, rate and subscribe, or you can rate and subscribe over at the YouTube channel at youtube.com/@Tobacco Road Sports Radio. Shout out to our terrestrial radio partners over at Southern Broadcasting, WTOB and WWBG. You can hear the best of the week every Friday in Greensboro and Winston-Salem of the Desmond Johnson Show. Brendan Marks in the house from The Athletic, and I wanted to get you on, my guy, because I hadn't talked to you in a couple of weeks, and some Carolina and Duke stuff had been popping up, and I was like, I need to talk to someone who's around the program like all the time. What's going on, man? How you doing?
Doing well. Yeah, it's a busy season, but always happy to join.
Had David Glenn on Tuesday, and he's kind of our portal guru in terms of keeping track of, I don't know if you can really say keep track, but trying to make sense of how many kids are in the portal. I think I saw a stat yesterday where there's enough kids in the portal to actually complete full rosters of 35 teams or something like that. There's over 8,000 kids in the portal, I believe DG said on Tuesday. Who knows what that number is now? But there were two names that popped up over the past 8 days or so that kind of caught my eye. A lot of people here in the area know I'm the voice of East Forsyth High School. I'm the voice of the Eagles. There were two former Eagles that were playing in the ACC that decided to hit the transfer portal this week. Let's start off in Chapel Hill. The strange case of freshman quarterback Bryce Baker. He was touted as Bill Belichick's first recruit. He trotted him out there during a Carolina basketball game last year. Bryce got a chance to talk on the microphone, and we never saw Bryce Baker on the field. Do you have any idea? Well, actually, let me finish. There's more to this story because Gio Lopez, the quarterback that was ahead of him at Carolina, also hit the transfer portal after Bryce Baker, because we assumed Bryce was hitting it because he couldn't get on the field and he wanted to go someplace else. The guy that was in front of him left too. And one of the places that Bryce was actually spotted this week, he was spotted at a Wake Forest basketball game, apparently on a visit, and he's from this area. Gio Lopez signs with Wake Forest like yesterday or day before. Can you make sense of what's going on in Chapel Hill? Why they lost both of these quarterbacks in the way that they did?
Well, I'd also add they also lost Max Johnson, who transfer portal as well. So, and look, you look at North Carolina's quarterback situation last year. Obviously, it was not up to par. Simply was not good enough in Bill Belichick's first season. And Gio Lopez was the big name, big portal addition, the guy that North Carolina spent, reportedly about $2 million on last year. But Bryce Baker was supposed to be the future. And I think it just sort of underscores the reality that you and I have talked about this before, Des, and I know you, I, and DG have as well. The guys are not waiting around for their opportunities anymore. Nobody's going to just sit and bide their time at this point, especially when you're somebody who is as highly touted and highly recruited as Bryce Baker was. So with Gio Lopez going to Wake Forest, it would be interesting to see if he would go there to be a part of the same quarterback competition again. But he's going to have plenty of suitors. And again, more times than not, we see this nowadays, and it works out. Like, you look at a guy who's playing in the college football playoff Dante Moore at Oregon, sort of a similar situation. Was a 5-star guy, highly touted, didn't work out at his first school, leaves, goes to Oregon, sits for a year, and then obviously is somebody who's leading his team deep into the college football playoff. So it's not the end of the world. I think fans are still coming around to just because guys leave. It doesn't always mean that it is a loss when they go into the transfer portal.
Yeah, well, the Bryce one hurts because I watched him up close for 2 years. He was probably the best quarterback that East Forsyth's produced. So he earned all the accolades that I think he threw for 4,000 yards his senior year in high school. And we kind of were behind the scenes like, yeah, we kind of want him to hit the transfer portal because he's not getting out in the field. So when that happened, it wasn't that much of a surprise. It was kind of a relief around this area. Like, oh, okay, good, he's gonna get a shot. Everyone keep an eye on Virginia Tech, in my opinion. James Franklin was the head coach over at Penn State. Penn State was one of the finalists for Bryce Baker when he made his decision, and now he's over at Virginia Tech. And Virginia Tech's got a boatload of money that just came in from donors or whatnot to redo their athletic program. So keep an eye on that. The other one that caught my eye was wide receiver Quayshawn Brown from Duke, who has stayed at Duke. He was a redshirt junior, if I'm not mistaken, this year. Really just plugged it out. I believe he had a different coach that recruited him to Duke, and then the coach he has now is not the same one from when he first got there. And he could have easily went someplace else freshman year because he didn't really get a lot of playing time. This year he did. He emerged as one of the top wide receivers in the ACC, and he actually really had a coming out party during the Duke's Mayo Bowl with 2 touchdowns and was just splashing all over the field. And I was telling you off camera, I was bragging to DG on Tuesday that how some of these kids just bounce around or whatever. I know kids that have been in the portal 3 times already that are juniors that already every year they transfer someplace else. And I was touting Q, and I was like, hey, he's been at Duke. He stuck it out. He got better, and now he's going to be rewarded the next year. I didn't realize his reward was going to be either SEC or Big Ten money because apparently that's what he decided to do. And in my mind, I'm like, well, he actually did it the right way. If you're going to do it, stick it out at a spot, increase your value, and then go transfer and get it that way, knowing you're going to play. Thoughts on Q leaving Duke? Was that a surprise that he left, considering that you followed his path the past couple of years?
Yeah, again, I think it is. It's a concept just more broadly. Obviously every player situation is unique, but this idea that I don't know how many 4-year guys, lifelong guys who are difference makers we're going to see in college football or college basketball for that matter moving forward.
Yeah,
it's a dying breed. It really is. And it's not because these guys aren't appreciated where they are. It's not because they aren't loyal to the places where they are. It's simply a fact. It's a different opportunity. And like you say, all due respect to Duke money and top level SEC or top level Big Ten money, those are different zip codes. Those are totally different things.
A lot different, yeah.
I had a coach compare it to me this way. If somebody came to me and said, "Hey, ESPN, we're looking to hire you, and we know that you love The Athletic. We know that you've had a great time at The Athletic. We're going to just start out by doubling your salary." I'm going to have that conversation.
You're going to have that conversation, yeah.
You're going to have that conversation. And so I think when you put yourself in the player's shoes like that, it helps make a lot more sense. And again, it doesn't minimize anything they've accomplished where they are, but it's hard to avoid that reality. And, loyalty, not that there's not a price on loyalty, but this is just the new world we live in.
And those 2 kids are, again, coming from East Forsyth, they're 2 of the most loyal kids I can think of. And I know that they spend a lot of time talking to their former head coach here and just other people they lean on to kind of make these decisions. And I know their families. So it's one of those things where I wanted to get from an outside view of someone who actually reports on these teams, what may have happened in terms of internally or whatever. We've been hearing all this stuff about Carolina and Belichick, and they don't know what they're doing and all this other stuff. We don't know. We really honestly don't know what their mode for team building is. I assume it's a little different than it was when they came in last year because they kind of came in late last year too, and people kind of forget that. But let's move off of college football and let's get into what's happening now, which is college basketball. My Heels have not played in a week, and that's probably good because the last time we saw them, Boopy Miller was breaking Caleb Wilson's ankles like all afternoon on switches, and SMU kind of announced to the world that they're pretty good too. They entered the top 25 this week after that win. They're ranked now at 24, and they'll be taking on a 6th-ranked Duke team 2:00 on Saturday. That game is on ESPN. It's a loaded Saturday. If you're an ACC fan, a Panthers fan, football, whatnot, you've got stuff from like early in the day all the way until like almost midnight, to be able to watch on Saturday, which I'm sure my wife will be delighted to hear how I'm going to spend my Saturday tomorrow. But talk to me about this SMU team that's going to play Duke on Saturday. I'm looking at the ACC standings, Brendan, and at this point last year, it's almost funny. Like when you looked at it last year around this time, you can only pick out 3 or 4 teams that could possibly make you get into the tournament. I'm looking at the ACC this year. There's only 3 teams in the entire league that are below 500 in terms of record-wise. And you've got feisty teams at the bottom like Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, Louisville, who was actually playing really well until their freshman got injured, and they've been kind of 500 ever since. Then you got this SMU team that was just really, really impressive Saturday. They shot over 50% from 3 against Carolina. You're not going to beat a lot of teams that are doing that. Give me your concern with them coming to Durham on Saturday. What does Duke need to watch out for? Is there a weakness that Duke has that you've seen so far that SMU can exploit?
Yeah, for sure. And I think as SMU showed in that Carolina game, they have an offense that can compete with anybody in the country. Carolina is, one of, if not the biggest teams in all of college basketball, not just the ACC this year. And for SMU to be able to so seamlessly get into its actions. And let's be clear, you watch that SMU game, they made some insane, ridiculous shots.
They really did.
I think it wound up being one of the worst defensive efficiency performances for Carolina in the Ken Pom era. Just, and some of that is luck. Some of it is also defense. For Duke, you have that similar concern. Dating back to the Lipscomb game, even though Duke turned it on in the second half against Louisville and was really able to shut down Ryan Conwell and pull out, one of the better road wins that we've seen so far this season. Since the Lipscomb game, Duke is outside of the top 100 in defensive efficiency. They have slumped dramatically. They're downranked around like Auburn and Mississippi State and Wisconsin, 3 teams who are like legitimately on the NCAA tournament bubble. So not at all what Duke's standard is, and especially not what its standard has been under John Shire. So this is like the ultimate test for Duke, right? Like you got this big win on the road. It's sort of one of those validating wins that, hey, we find ways to win. We figure it out. But if Duke is going to accomplish its season-long goals, it's going to have to, starting Saturday, show some serious defensive refinement and much better attention to detail than it has the past couple of games.
Who would you say? I know everyone's trying to push it to be Isaiah Evans, but if it's not Isaiah Evans, who can be the most dependable second scorer for this Duke team? Because that seems to be the difference between this year and last year. Last year, you knew it was Connor and Con Knueppel. You knew it was going to be Flagg and Knueppel, but basically they were the two. And even when Flagg was out, Cooper Flagg, Knueppel picked up the pace, and now we're seeing him in the NBA, and he's like trying to break Steph Curry records and stuff, which is nuts. But who would that other option be if it's not Isaiah Evans? Because it feels like Evans is like on one night and then maybe a little off the next night, so he's not as dependable. Who would you nominate to be that guy, if there is one?
It's a fair question. It's a question I think that local and national media have been talking about basically for the entirety of the season. I do think it is on a consistent basis, probably still Isaiah. But you're right, because of his shooting. Sometimes he's on a heater and sometimes he's not. And so as long as he makes the last one like he did against Florida, Duke will take those performances. I really have been so impressed, and I thought he was the story of the second half against Louisville with Caleb Foster. This is a guy who he came in, he was heralded as a top 25 recruit. He started as a freshman, ultimately gets hurt, doesn't play in the tournament his freshman year, is supposed to be the point guard next to Cooper Flagg next year, loses his job in December, basically loses all his confidence, falls out of the rotation, and in a very rare move decides to come back for his third year in Durham. Kind of some Jeremy Roach vibes to his trajectory.
That's good.
And he's been tremendous in all of Duke's biggest spots this year. He was sensational against Arkansas, had a career-high 8 assists. I think he had 12 on the road at Michigan State, which is one of the best wins any team has this year. Had a career-high 20, career-high made field goals against Louisville the other night, most of that in the second half. His development and him being able to just consistently get downhill and put pressure on the rim really opens up everything else for this Duke offense. So Patrick Ngongba is going to have his games too. Caden Boozer is going to have his moments. Like Duke has other pieces, but to me, if Caleb Foster can consistently be, like a 12, 4, and 3 guy, which he has been in ACC play, that really, to me, lifts Duke's ceiling and makes them a legitimate Final Four national title contender.
So you got Duke SMU, a battle of top 25 ranked teams at 2:00. That's on ESPN on Saturday. At 4:30, you got Panthers Rams wild card. Cam Newton's going to be banging the keep pounding drum outside. You want to talk about an earthquake in terms of the building shaking? It's going to be so loud at Bank of America Stadium at 4:30. We might be able to hear it here in Kernersville, an hour away. And then at 6:00, I'm trying to figure out how I'm saying this out loud because in my mind I'm trying to figure out how am I going to watch all this stuff. At 6, 17th ranked Carolina takes on Wake Forest. I believe that game is in Chapel Hill.
Yep.
It is in Chapel Hill. Carolina will be hosting that game. That's on the ACC network at 6 o'clock. Carolina, it felt until they ran to SMU, and I'm almost wanting to ask you, do you feel like the SMU game was kind of a weird one-off type game? Because you did mention they hit some crazy shots in that game. They were on an insane tear from three-point range. I don't know if they necessarily exposed Carolina, but they may have. I think SMU just really showed more that they're a good team too, as opposed to Carolina not being a good team. What have you seen from Carolina in the stretch besides the SMU game that you've felt might be able to carry them deep into March that they did not have last year?
Yeah, I mean, for starters, obviously the front court. I hesitate to say that North Carolina has one of the best front courts in the country, only because it doesn't have any depth. But it does have one of the best, if not the best, starting front court in the country. Caleb Wilson, I mean, he's everything that people say he is. He's been an absolute gem of a find for Hubert Davis. He's been better than I think anybody thought he would be. Henry Visar has been one of the best transfer acquisitions in the country.
Did not know he was that good. Yeah, at all.
I mean, and look, he was splitting time in the front court at Arizona. That's how Tommy Lloyd likes to play his bigs with the Wildcats. And in a featured role, he has absolutely thrived. And that big-to-big element has been so dangerous for Carolina all year long. And really, it's made the second – it works so well with the secondary break, because Caleb Wilson runs to the rim. Visar is a trailer. That's where he's best shooting threes. He's one of Carolina's best three-point shooters this year. So those two have been sensational. Obviously, the lack of depth behind them, when you do see them get in foul trouble, like Visar did against SMU, that's when North Carolina starts to have some problems. So that's a huge thing for them. The other thing I would say is, like, they have a lot of pieces on the wings, but I don't think they have figured out all of the rotations and roles with those pieces yet.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's a work in progress. I think Derek Dixon is still making an argument for more minutes. Luka Bogovac has struggled shooting the ball. Jonathan Powell has struggled shooting the ball. Seth Trimble, meanwhile, has come back from injury and looked absolutely sensational, like he hasn't missed a step. So
that's great.
Go ahead.
It's almost like Trimble's kind of solidified the rotation to a certain degree, and it's not like they have too many wings. It's almost like some of the wings that Hubert maybe wasn't expecting to grow as quickly as they have. So Dixon at the point, kind of challenging Evans. Powell he just shoots without consciousness. Like he's letting it fly. And Jaden Young's got a little bit of that in him as well. So he's starting to get a little bit of minutes. So also, but Powell, I've kind of pushed for Powell to get in the starting lineup, but I don't know who to replace. Luka probably would be the one, because he's struggling, but you don't want to put the European pro on the bench. You kind of want to let him start and let Powell come off. So it's a good problem to have. Carolina did not have this problem before. And I am happy for Hubert, because when left to his own devices, he's proven now twice he can go into the portal and craft a team. Like, he's done this before. The Harrison Ingram, Cormac Ryan group that secured a 1 seed and won the ACC. He kind of put that together in the portal, even though he had leftovers, Barado, Armando, and RJ and others. This is the first team he's had where he just basically from scratch just built the roster and had like recipe. I need a 5-star freshman. I need a couple freshmen that are going to be 3-year, 4-year guys. I need guys in the portal that are going to shoot. They're long and lengthy and can get in the passing lanes and all this other stuff. And he's checked up all those boxes. So I'm sitting here now as we're just now really getting into ACC play. Besides Duke, and honestly, maybe Clemson and Carolina, as who I'm looking at right now. Is there any other team in the ACC standings, real quick, before I get you out of here, that you're looking at that could really challenge for the regular season title?
Yeah, the other two, I would say, I'm still a believer in Louisville. You mentioned Mikhail Brown Jr., their 5-star freshman point guard. He's been out for, I think, 5 games now with a lower back injury. As somebody who's had one of those, they are not fun. But you've really seen Louisville struggle to create high-caliber three-point looks, which they are leading the country in the percentage of threes that they take per game. When they don't have the guy who's setting those up, obviously, they're not going to make as many of them. So getting him back will be huge for them. He'll fix their turnover problem a little bit too. I still think that Louisville can be a team that makes a deep run in the tournament. The other one is Virginia. I think Virginia's been fantastic this year. Ryan Odom has built an awesome team and sort of did it under the radar. Not a lot of flashy names there. You get a couple of European pros, Thijs de Ritter, Johan Grunlo. They've been, a fantastic starting front court for him. Chance Mallory's been terrific as a freshman who he was able to retain, who was committed to Tony Bennett. Virginia, I don't know that Virginia has like the top end athleticism of some of these teams like a Carolina. But certainly they have the depth, and they have a bunch of different ways to beat you. They're incredibly versatile. I'm a big fan of Virginia. I would not at all be surprised if by the end of February they are top 3 right there challenging for the ACC title. I think they can be that good.
Yeah, Ryan Odom's Virginia Cavaliers, sneaky good. The ACC is good, compared to, really the past couple of years, really since post-COVID, really, honestly, if we go back that far, this is the first year really where I'm looking at like, wow, I think the ACC can get a 1 seed, maybe we can get 2, by the time it's all said and done. So I'm going to get you out of here. You can follow Brendan on X at Brendan R. Marks for the latest. When this works, he the beat writer for Carolina and Duke Athletics. So definitely go check him out over at The Athletic. Appreciate having you on, man.
Always. Thanks for having me.
And we'll be back in just a bit here on the Desmond Johnson Show.